Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I am joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are you today?
I am here, Lake. How are you?
I am doing okay. I think we are both just doing okay, but we are both off of some pretty incredible trips. And Steve, too. All of us were traveling within the same week.
I know. We should have asked Steve if he was available to come on. He just came back from Peru from Adventures by Disney. If you haven't checked out his pictures yet, they're amazing at DCL_adventures on Instagram. So definitely check those out if you haven't yet.
Yeah, and then I was probably the least exciting to this podcast to the podcast.
Yeah, okay. You might be right.
I was in Minnesota to run a marathon called Grandma's Marathon, which is a pretty famous marathon, but we had Run Disney friends come. Did not have a good race, but the time with friends was very, very filling.
First of all, you started out your race a little bit speedier, and maybe it was too speedy because it was too hot. And I only know this from watching your little video that you gave, because you were like, look at my pace. I mean, you didn't say that, but that's how I heard it. But you were too fast. Even the professionals came out and said they had to slow down because it was too hot.
Yeah, we unfortunately, part of picking this marathon is this time of year up in literally the tippy top of the United States, up in Duluth, Minnesota, is supposed to be cooler. And we ended up with crazy weather. It was storming in the morning. And then halfway through the marathon, they delayed it. And then it was blistering hot. It was all sorts of craziness.
Yeah, I know. I felt so bad. One of my favorite professional runners, though, she's retired now, but Kara Goucher actually called the race. And it was on Minnesota, put it on their local news, and they aired it. Anybody could go to the website and watch. So I got to watch the race. I actually tried to look out at the video footage just to see if you were anywhere there, because I think you guys, but you got to the line late. We're not here to talk about your race, but there was an issue, right? Because of the weather. So you got the line late, but I looked because the men started just behind the professional women. So I was like, maybe Lake will be in there. I was looking for your shirt.
Yeah, we
the regular men, not the professional.
Yes, the regular start
men,
was with the women's elite.
Which I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe if we ever do a Run Disney rundown, randomly, we should just talk about this, because I don't like it as much for the women. Why do they have to be crowded? It helps maybe sometimes when there's a pacer to unofficially, but to run with them. But I don't like that.
I don't know that if you were starting up there, even as a professional woman, you were crowded.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Anyway,
I could be wrong.
People talk about the crowding at Walt Disney World races, but in your fancy corral, it's not crowded, especially at the start, in the beginning, when you get to be in front of all the people, once you start running. And your race was very crowded this time.
Yeah, it's a faster trending races. And then I had to I basically started back a corral because I was late due to busing issues. So
the moral of the story is maybe you just need to run your fast race at Walt Disney World because you can be ahead of everybody. I kind of don't hate that plan.
Yeah, but that's I did as my first marathon.
Okay.
But the marathon video is my biggest video of the year every year. So
okay, so here's the problem. We need to stop talking, but also just throw that darn camera on somebody else's hat, and then you can race your marathon. That's all. No, so listeners, this is what happens. This is how Lake and I talk. And so now you get to be a part of it for 5 minutes. I apologize. I just came back from Norway, brought back every illness with us, but that's okay. We had the most amazing vacation. Norway's my new favorite place to go. I did fitness. I hiked mountains, and one of our listeners, Brian, made fun of my hiking in the Patreon chat and basically told me I was a wimp, that this is his everyday run sometimes because he lives in the mountains. But I think my mountains were cool.
Your pictures were cool. You have some amazing photos.
And so those trip reports are up now. If you haven't listened to them because you're like, I don't care about celebrity, we hardly talk about celebrity. So I would say give it a listen. The Patreons have been commenting that they've been entertaining and it's been fun to hear about the ports. So give it a listen if you haven't.
Yeah, I think they're actually some of my favorite snippet episodes that we've done. I really enjoyed them.
Yay. They were the least snippets that ever existed because we had so much to say. But, you have to listen at least to the first one to hear why Claire Davis is now part of my life forever. Listen, and now you can learn.
Good old Claire Davis. Well, why don't we turn it towards DCL? We do have quite a bit of news that's dropped within the last few weeks of us all being out and about. Do we want to start with what I think is the biggest one, or at least the most impactful to our wallets?
Yeah, and it's surprising.
Yeah, so Disney Cruise Line reduced booking deposit fees from 20% to 10%, which is what it used to be for the longest time, right?
I don't know. Well, so on placeholders, if it's a week-long cruise, you got to have it be reduced to 10%. But yeah, that reduced deposit is huge.
Yeah, I mean, that price to entry, because that is typically that first thing you're going to be paying is literally half that amount, which, it definitely points to signs that Disney is trying to get more bookings.
Yeah, and that I do think based upon sales, we've talked about it. We did our sales episode like maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago, so you can go listen to that if you haven't. Because of those summer sales, it just seems to me that are still in effect that bookings are a bit soft right now.
Yeah, which is crazy though, because the ships are still filling up by the time it's sailing though. I don't feel like we're hearing.
It's hard to say. And part of that is also cast members then get to have, and there's a lot of cast members and they get to have discounts and things so it's really hard to say, but I don't think it's filling up totally with full price people.
Yeah. And then as you already discussed, if you have a placeholder now, you have that reduced deposit to 5%, which is pretty crazy.
Right. Sadly, the price of the whole cruise didn't go down. So you still have to pay that by the time it's due. But at least, you can have a little bit more to start with to plan to budget your way.
Yeah. I mean, that really when you're looking at putting something down for a cruise, that's not a ton.
Right. And that's just for the 7-night cruises or more. So it is not for shorter end cruises.
Right. But then leading into what I think is my most exciting thing to talk about is new ship info.
Okay, let's do it.
And it's not a ton, but there is a ton in that aspect. There is a lot of tonnage, but we have hull numbers assigned for the next 5 ships in the Disney Cruise Line fleet, as well as some tonnage and guest capacities as well. So, of course, the next 2 ships are Triton-class ships. They are not named yet, but you do have 723 will be the next mainline Disney Cruise Line ship. Again, Triton-class. I really don't know, what to expect out of that, to be honest.
Where they put, you know what, Blake? So one of the things that's not on this list that we didn't talk about was Galveston. And Galveston is getting... And everybody's like, it's going to be a Triton-class ship. And I'm like, give me a break. It isn't going to be a Triton because that's another location that has a hard time selling, except that Disney, people cruise out of Galveston and Disney is such a huge draw. And it makes it so much more convenient for people on further west in the country to get to Texas versus getting all the way to Florida. And that ship is coming out in 2027. Now, I don't know so many things. Are they going to so Galveston is getting a new ship. There was some talk by the Galveston, city council or whoever that, and you all know that I don't have ever the specifics in my brains of that type of thing. So just go with my Lucy talk. But that they said it was going to be a large ship. This would be a large ship for Disney Cruise Line. Now, I think, and then that new Triton-class ship comes out in 2027, which is what just prompted us to have this chat. Because the Galveston ships are coming in 2027, or Disney to Galveston. But I think they'll move one, right?
I mean, more than likely, I think it makes sense that, Dream or Fantasy ends up going over there. Likely the Fantasy, to be honest, because the Dream is going back to the Europe rotation.
But they can't not have a Fantasy ship, in my opinion, out of Florida at all. I think it'll be the Wish.
Think they can.
Then. People love it. And
I don't think it matters.
They'll just go to Galveston.
Yeah, I think if they're going to bring a new ship over, they want that ship out of a Florida port. We've already seen, Fort Lauderdale is kind of incentivizing cruise lines to come and sail and launch ships out of their port. If you look, there is a ton of inaugural sailings for different cruise lines out of Fort Lauderdale, just like the Destiny. So I think one of those ships. Now, it is definitely possible that a Triton class moves over. I certainly don't think it'll be the newest ship.
No, I think it'll be the Wish, personally.
I don't know. I'm not sold on the Wish moving though either.
Yeah,
because
so
they love that 3-night ship to just be that 3-night ship. Like the Dream was the 3-4 night ship for what, 15, 20 years, basically. Sure. Like I feel like they just love to sit one of those ships there for a long time. And I, again, could be wrong. Total speculation.
And then what are the new shows going to be? And oh my God, I need all the information. All right. So that's 2027, the first one. What do we have next?
And then we have the other Oriental Land Company has the Triton class ship. Probably most notable about that is that if any of these Triton class ships have some variation or differences in style, that's going to be the one that'll have it. You know, I think the Disney Cruise Line 723 will probably be pretty much in line with what we're seeing currently with Wish, Treasure, Destiny. Not that they aren't all pretty unique in their layout or in their design, at least, and their aesthetics. But if any of these ships are going to be like crazy different, I think it's definitely going to be that Oriental Land Company ship. But then we have a new class of ship as well, which was already teased that this was going to be what it is. So you have S731, 732, and 733. There is no name or no class name for this, but this is kind of what I would describe as like a Magic Class Plus size. It's going to sit just a little bit bigger than the Magic and the Wonder, but then it is still smaller than the Dream and Fantasy, which I think is what we were all hoping for, is that smaller ship size. We have seen this trend in the cruise line industry where cruise lines, you know, have gone big and gone home and are now like, okay, we need to scale back because our ships can't go all the places people want to go.
Yep. So the Magic and the Wonder have a gross tonnage of 84,000 tons, and this ship will be 100,000 tons. So just a little bit more. And then to give you just an idea, the Fantasy and the Dream are 130,000 gross tons. So that's a good size, I think. I'm excited about the size. And they have an opportunity now to really, okay, Imagineers, are you listening? First of all, you need to put a bathroom in or hand washing station in the youth spaces that are for teens and tweens, because I need my kid to wash his hands when he's in there. But secondly, this gives them an opportunity to really design for what guest feedback has been from the Triton class. And knowing that there are many of us that just love so much the feel and the first 4 ships. Here's what I am curious about. The new cruisers who have cruised a Triton class before cruising any other class of ship, or even new cruisers in general, like the Triton class better. This is what I've seen from either our listeners, from online, from my clients, all the things. But are the new cruisers cruising enough, repeating enough for Disney to listen to them, or us old cruisers?
That's definitely a ton one. I mean, I think, yes, we love the Magic and the Wonder. You know, I don't think any of us are looking for clones of those ships.
Nope.
You know, but what we are looking for is that they capture the charm and the feel of those ships.
The intimate feel, yeah.
The sizing definitely helps to that.
Yep.
But, you know, there are definitely some like design things that I think we all love about those ships that we hope would carry over. Like, I still think the adult spaces on the Magic and the Wonder are fantastic. Yes, you know, I love Satellite Falls, but having like one nice big pool and like having kind of that nice, like 2 different central areas where, you know, all your lounges are pretty much in one accessible area. And then all of your pool spaces are one, you know, accessible adult area. You know, those are just 2 things that I love. You know, I'm A-okay with like, you know, a variety of theming from what we've seen from the Magic and the Wonder. You know, I think the theming is definitely more creative now on the ships.
It's so much IP, though, also.
I don't disagree with that.
Stand to come back a little bit with that.
But then we also discuss about, you know, adding Tianas to the Wonder and like how much people love that. And, it's a catch-22 because yes, we say we want more original, but then they add these IPs and we're like, oh, look how great this is.
And that is true because I was talking last night to a client yesterday about whether to do the Destiny or the Fantasy for her family with young kids. And there are pros and cons for sure for each, which is why people should contact a travel agent, whoever it might be, because we can help you pick a cruise specific to you and what would be best for your family. Like if you're not sending your kids to the kids club, then that can make a difference in decisions for which class of ship to go as well. If you're not going to the adult spaces, that makes a difference as to which class of ship you pick. So just things that I talk to my clients about when we're picking a ship for them. But yeah, I cannot wait to see what they come out with for the new ships.
Yeah,
the
Donna,
new class.
We are live for our Patreons, and Donna said in the Patreon page, deck 4 promenade track, please, which I also agree with.
100,000%. Like that one I care more about than hand washing. I'll just let my kid not wash his hands if I can have track on deck 4. Imagineering, are you listening? Okay.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. I mean, obviously, we will probably hear next about the next Triton class ship. It'll be probably the next D23 before we hear about anything on the smaller class of ships.
It'll probably be like 2 D23s because won't the next D23 be in 26?
Yeah. Yes.
And these ships aren't coming out till 31. So I don't.
Well, 29's the first one.
Oh, yay.
I mean, it'll be like, The Wish, where we're excited. Like, yes, we've loved all of these new Triton class ships.
But nothing was like that.
Right. No release was like that. And honestly, there's a chance that even this class won't be quite as hyped as the Wish, only because the gap is not what it used to be.
Right. Because it was so many years.
Yeah, it was 10 years between the Fantasy and the Wish.
Yeah.
Like, that was probably the biggest time in DCL, like,
right,
especially within, like, the vlogging and news type of community, like,
in the current times.
Yeah, it's a whole different game now. But now we also have ships literally launching every single year up until that point.
Well, I think that's it for that news story, right?
Yeah, I think I about got every point I needed to out.
Your excitement was cute. Yeah, I can't wait. Okay, so next news story, a little bit quick and less fun. Disney has canceled the April 19th sailing of the Disney Magic. This was a repositioning sailing. Sadly, one of our friends, Patreon, lost her cruise on this one. They are offering 20% off just for that guest cruise fare. So remember, it's not for like a whole cabin going forward. It's just that guest cruise fare going forward. So if you're not sailing with the same people, and then they are getting a refund, obviously, but that's a bummer.
I agree, but
there's a dry dock situation. Basically, it was that there was a change in the dry dock schedule and they had to do it this way for that. So I'm wondering, I doubt it means they're changing what they're doing at dry dock. I think it's just the shipyard is busy.
Yeah, definitely more of just a schedule change because there's just nothing scheduled for the Magic to be getting anything, basically.
Yeah.
It's going to be more of routine maintenance. But we do have, unfortunately, we talked about some not price decreases, but deposit decreases. But we also have to talk about price increases.
Wow.
Yep. So basically, adult dining, Palo and Remy and Enchante is seeing price increases across the fleet. Now, luckily, is typically the conversation in this, they love to just bump it up $5. So, it doesn't feel that bad, but it is definitely, $5 every couple years. But I would say most of these are still a pretty good value. So Palo and Palo Steakhouse are jumping up $5 to $55, and the prefix menu increases $5 to $55 as well.
Ooh, I wonder if that means Prima Note's increasing as well. I haven't heard anything about that, but we'll have to look.
Yeah, I definitely could see that. We weren't able to book it on our next cruise.
So sad.
I know, it was very sad. I love Prima Note.
And then to know the increase dates are a little bit unique. Like the Wish has already hit their increase. The Disney Dream and the Magic are seeing their increases basically right around now. The Fantasy, remind me what the Fantasy was doing. Oh, the Fantasy doesn't start until November. And then also the Australia cruises will not see an increase. I think because they weren't announced when people booked or whatever, that they don't see them until later.
Yeah, basically, if a ship is not already in the States, it's not hitting that price increase until it gets back to the States, is what we're seeing with that. But then Remy has price increases as well, $5 on brunch. The dessert's going up $5, and then the dinner is going up $10. So you're looking at $85 for brunch, $70 for the dessert experience, and then $145 for dinner. And Enchante is following pretty much a similar price point as that $10 increase for lunch and dinner to $145. And actually, that is the only experience mentioned for Enchante right now.
Well, because I think it's all the same.
Yep. Yeah, lunch and dinner are the same, but they don't do a dessert style.
Right, because remember, that was on the other ship. That was on the Wish when the dessert chef just was like, I'm done. They had to cancel all those. Yeah, so, we save some money in some places. We spend more in others. Seems accurate.
That is how it goes sometimes. Christy, do you have anything else you want to discuss?
Yeah, so we have a couple other things. One is that we have, and I think our listener, Donna, is actually listening to us on our YouTube channel or through the Patreon or whatever, but we have our YouTube channel up, and Lake has loaded all of our previous podcast episodes onto the YouTube channel. So it is at DCL Podcast. And maybe from now on, I wonder if we should put them in the show notes in case people want to try to find it, because it's like a weird thing with YouTube. We don't just get to have DCL Podcast. It's like DCL Podcast 08 or something like that for the tag, for the address. But you can still search DCL Podcast, find our logo, and then you'll see it. If you want to listen, because I know a lot of people like to listen through YouTube while they're doing something else. So that is now an option to listen to our show. And then I wanted to mention briefly about Hercules. So while I was in Europe, we saw the Hercules show and it was amazing. So Hercules is on the West End. It's a musical. It's far too long to be a ship show. Like, I think the running time was about almost 3 hours or 2.5 or 3 hours.
It's 111 minutes.
2 hours. So basically, and there's an intermission, but it was the best. Blake was entertained throughout. Dave and I were we were all so happy that we bought tickets. It's at the West End right now. If anybody wants to see it, the seats are pretty reasonable, honestly, to go and see a Broadway caliber show. Man, to see a real Broadway show, basically, because I only ever see shows on the ship at this point in my life. It is just amazing. I loved it so much. So anyway, those who are going on the Destiny, you are going to get quite a treat with Hercules. You know the ship show is going to be amazing, and hopefully we'll be able to see it in the fall with a preview. We'll see, and then we can report back as well. But that show's great. And if you want to join us on the Destiny, we are cruising on the Destiny July 18th. And we are going to Cozumel and
Castaway. I
don't know why I can't. That is a block. That second port, I cannot keep in my brains. But we're going to Castaway. So we could do a podcast 5K. I think we're going to have to do a podcast 5K. Like, you can take the front ones. I'll take the back runners. We'll have everybody in between. You don't have to do it with us, but that would be totally fun. And I think us. And then, we'll do some group activities, but reach out if you'd like to be booked. We'd love to sail with you. Lake and his wife are sailing. My family is sailing. We have a bunch of listeners sailing. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you're a fan of my page, all of our little Mouse Gen runner crew is pretty much coming, which is super exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited for you guys.
And we do have some tentative, different activities and meetups already planned for that. There is a page on our website. If you go to dclpodcast.com, there is a podcast cruise page with kind of more information about the cruise, about what activities we are looking at and have planned.
Yeah, so we hope you'll join us. And then I think these other news stories, I think we've already discussed. So, but one thing I'll just reiterate really quick. The Norwegian Fjords hasn't closed their sailings yet. It was supposed to close in 2026, and they clawed that back. And while they decide what they really want to do, and those sail-ins in and out of the fjords, we did 2 of them, the big fjords, were the most amazing things. They're people talk about the Inside Passage, and the Inside Passage is great, but this kicks their butt for sure. So definitely consider checking it out if this type of trip is on your list at all. It was just so special.
Yeah, still kicking myself for not being able to add that on to our London cruise, but that is okay. We are going to have a fantastic cruise. We are also have tickets to see Hercules. Steve and I are sailing together. We've got lots of fun excursions that we've booked all sorts of different ways too, which is like my first time booking cruise excursions, but we're excited. We've got a lot of fun stuff, and we'll have snippets and all of that fun stuff for that episode or for that sailing as well.
Yeah, I can't wait to listen to those. And our Patreon always get to listen to them sooner. So if you were interested, you could check out our Patreon program at
patreon.com/DCL podcast.
Yeah, Lake has to say it because I get it wrong every time. All right, what? I think that'll do it for this news episode.
I think so. Christy, where can our listeners follow you?
You can find me at Pack Your Pixie Dust all over the internet. And I would love to help you book your next cruise if you are not working with a travel agent.
Yep. If you are listening to this episode on any of your podcast players, you can scroll down and there's a Book with Christy link. We highly encourage you to check that out. It does also help support the show.
Thanks, Lake. And Lake, where can we find you?
You can find me mostly on Instagram and YouTube at MouseGen. All sorts of fun running in cruise stuff going on there. And then you can follow the podcast at a DCL Podcast on Instagram and Facebook.
And if you haven't left us a review and you don't mind.
Sorry, little coughing fit there by Christy. But if you don't mind going to Apple Podcasts and leaving us a 5-star review, we greatly, greatly appreciate it. And it truly helps get the podcast out there. So if you do enjoy this content and you want a free way to help support the show, we seriously greatly appreciate you going over to Apple Podcasts and leaving that 5-star review.
Thank you for taking over.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thanks for doing the show today. It was really nice to talk to you again because it had been a minute. So
yeah, we have, like I said, been all over the place. Looking forward to scheduling some regular shows, though we have a lot of exciting episodes recorded and getting ready to come out as well. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.